all right, which is my HDR program of choice. Select the 3, and what do? Right-click, edit in Photomatix. As I showed you earlier, let's go ahead and select that one there. Edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments, that's fine. Go ahead and edit. And we're going to sit back and relax. And it'll make a virtual copy. And then let's actually go into Photomatix and see if it's bringing it up in here. Okay, there we are. Merge for HDR processing, yes. Click it OK. There's your 3 images. It sees it. Click OK. And I'm going to keep this all the same, aligning it. All right, and we'll do a Photomatix webinar in the future. We have done one in the past, but we can do another in the future. But I just want to show you how we can use external programs to edit this stuff. So I'm going to go bring it on out. And although we have all types of great creative possibilities, I'm going to come back into Lightroom in just one moment. I want you to be aware that your primary creative controls, in other words, the programs that's going to allow you the most controls are going to be programs dedicated to image editing, allowing you to use layers and adjustments and HDR adjustments and so forth. There it is. All right, it blended it all together. I've already had a preset set, so my shadows, midtones, and highlights are looking pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. Click the process real fast. And when it's done processing, what do we need to do? We pretty much hit Control-S, right? Here it is. There's the final image, Control-S, and it's going to put it right back into the Death Valley folder. It's calling it Tone Mapped Death Valley, giving it a name. I'm going to leave it the same for now. And I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and just take all this off. I'm going to call it Death Valley _ Tone Map. Let's just keep it simple and then save it. All right, so done saving it. Let's go back into Lightroom. Now, Lightroom made copies for everything, and oftentimes it does not always show you the tone map image. It's a little bit of a bug I found, and the way to handle it is this. Let's go back to your library. Let's see if we can go to the library view, hit the G key for the grid view, and see if we see it in here somewhere. No, we don't just yet. This is what I found for a workaround. Simply go to your main folder or the folder that it was listed in, which is the Death Valley folder. I'm going to go to the main folder just to be safe. Right-click, synchronize the photo. So it's going to recognize any new imagery that has been applied or anything that has been deleted. I'm going to select it. It sees new images already. Synchronize it. Sit back and relax and be patient. A couple of them it doesn't see, but the one that we're interested in is that one right there. It found it. Previous import, number 1, and there is my HDR image. Now, from this point, once you synchronize it, you won't have any problems whatsoever. It will always stay in your database. Okay, so let's go in and let's go under my webinar folder, click that, and hit my G. Let's go do some more interesting applications here. Select it, go to my develop module, see what I have here, Control minus, bring it down a little bit. This one I shot up in San Francisco at the old Presidio compound. It has some good possibilities here, but it's not quite there yet. And here's what I'm thinking. Let's do what we can here in Lightroom, and then let's do the rest in Photoshop. Let's use the 2 in combination. All right, so as I like to work, go to black and white. Just start there. I can use a preset from over here if I like. You know, it's your choice. I can go contrast high, select it. I like that as well, contrast low. And let's go down and see what other possibilities. I love this one here. I think I'm going to work with this one. And I like what I have here so far. Let's go back over to the top into our Basics tab and play around with some of the shadows and the highlights. Let's go to the highlights or the whites. Let's bring those up. Let's bring them down. There we go, adding a little more detail on the whites. Let's see what we can do. Some subtlety. There we are. See that little subtlety is just affecting the highlights right in the stairway. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit. And I'm going to stay there, come back down to my color tab, go to the color version of it. There we are. I like the way that looks. Once again, what I forgot to do was make a virtual copy. No big deal. Right-click on it, create a virtual copy. There it is. Go back to my original and simply reset it so we can just do a before and after comparison. Now, just to be safe, I'm going to duplicate this one as well. I don't think I have to necessarily in the new version of Lightroom, but I'll do it just in case. Right-click, edit in, bring it into Photoshop CS6. Here it is. Now, let's work some more magic on it. How about this concept? Let's duplicate the layer, and I often like to play around with blend modes. I'll hit color overlay. Way too much punch, although I like it a little bit, so I'm going to bring it down. There we are. A little more punch, a little more sharpness going on here. Before and after. It's very subtle. Get in a little closer. Before and after. Let's actually bring it up. There we are. And before, after, before, after. All right, so I like the contrast going on here. And I love this darker section in here that's really making your eye move to the chairs or to the stairs here. How about if we add more detail just to the highlights only? And I'm going to do that by using a channel. Look at our channels. I want to find the one that's going to separate my highlight values from everything else. And I believe this red channel is going to work. Command-click on the red channel to alter it into a selection. Once I have a selection, I can add this to a mask, but I'm a little premature right now. So I tell you what, let's save this selection as a channel. So, or an alpha channel selection, save that selection. And where did it save it to? It saved it as an alpha channel right here. I'll go ahead and Command D to turn it off. All right, now I want to control the highlights. Let's go ahead and make a brand new duplicate here. Change it to something like a blend mode that's going to allow me to gain more detail in my highlights, which you can see here. If I bring this up, you can see how it's really bringing in detail in the highlights. And that's all I care about is what's going on in the highlights here. Now, what we can do, go to our channel, Command-click, there's our selections, add a new mask. The layer mask will honor your selection there, okay? So, before and after, I want to really inhibit the tonal values more toward the highlights and the stairs. I want the rest of this to be less effective. So, if I Alt-click on the mask, and I decide to simply, let's keep this easy here. Go to my Levels command and make the blacks blacker. Okay, see what's happening there? Taking them darker. There we are, just about like so. Bring this back out. So we're targeting more of the highlights. Bring the highlights a little stronger. There we are. Okay, last thing I'm going to do, if I really want to minimize this over here, hit the B key for my brush, and I'm going to select for my layer blend mode, overlay, which is going to affect, while painting with black and overlay, it's going to affect the darks in here. Okay, and so now I've just isolated this. Bring my brush down a little closer. I've just isolated these stairs. And if I want to go to a normal blend mode instead of overlay, I can come over and paint the rest of this out with black. All right, so that should make sense. So what I've done is, I'm going to hit the Alt key and go back. What I've done now is just isolated the effects before and after, just to the highlights here. So now I'm seeing a lot more detail everywhere, nice control here. Now, I'm almost happy with this, okay? Let's go ahead and merge everything into its own layer, Control-Alt-Shift-E, if you don't know the shortcut. And I merged everything to its own layer while saving all of these. Now, here's the catch. Composition, in my opinion, is slightly off. I want this shape, the ring and the texture above it, to be just slightly over here. So I'm going to use a new tool in Photoshop CS6 called the Content Aware Move tool. And if I just simply select this little shape right around in there, just the area that I want to actually move over, I'm going to do it again, by the way, be a little bit more precise about it. Bring it around and then connect it. Now, I want this to be moved slightly over here to balance out the composition a little bit better. I believe this is just a little too close to the center. Bring it on over. We'll say right about, how does that look? We'll take it right about there and release. So what I'm hoping will happen, because I played with this tool and sometimes it gives me great results and sometimes it doesn't. Oh, it did a fantastic job this time. So it's moved my object from here over to here, Control or Command D to deselect. As you can see, it left a little bit of a resonance to that, but that's no big deal because if you come back on over and grab the patch tool, select that whole area, and then go get another piece of texture. Let's see how this works. And it will blend it. There we are. So let's go hit Command D. There it is. So it blends the texture in there quite well. And if I want to get rid of that there, we can just go ahead and grab some texture right over here and relax. There it is. Done. Okay? So now we have our brand new image. And all I want to do at this point is Control or Command S. Okay? And whoop, let's go ahead and click that there. Let's go back into Lightroom. Come back in. There it is. And there it is. There's our image. Brought it in as another virtual copy. And let's see it before and after. Before and after. Before and after. All right, so don't be afraid to come in here, play around with some of the black and white commands first, apply it to your color. And we also have lens correction, pretty cool. The way I like to use lens correction is instead of, messing around with the sliders, apply a profile. That seems to be the most effective way to use this, in my opinion. Click this here, edit the profile corrections, apply your camera. It immediately recognized my lens. It immediately recognized the profile and applied it. Okay, and let's just see it before and after. Before and after. Actually, let's go back. I'll tell you what, we'll keep this one right about here. But now you can see this really helps because this will remove your chromatic aberration. That'll do it for you automatically. And I think that's going to be, for me, I like to use the profiles. It's just like magic. All right, now we can also add your vignetting if you like. Add a little more of an effect, black or white. If you want to bring down, you want to bring your eye, get a cleaner edge there. Utilize this. Now, as I'm working with this, I like to bring this up. Let's see, where's my feather? Let's go ahead and bring the feather to here. I like to get a fairly hard shape, and then from here, kind of mess around where I want things and how I want it shaped, okay? And then once I have it selected or composed within the scene, then I can come in here and start to adding the feather amount that I want, all right? The midpoint, extending it or reducing it. You guys make the choice. Greater amount, and we can adjust the intensity of the sides and so forth. All right, so there's a lot more in here that we can play around with. We can go, again, once we have this image, I'm going to go to the library view. And here it is. I have it selected still. I can bring it right over here and drag it. And if it's not in the collections already, we'll go ahead and put it in there. In fact, let's select in our collection. Go to our webinar collection and select this and the ones I actually did some manipulation to, and I can create another collection, completed images, and create. All right, and there you are. So you can organize your work this way as well. All right, so I think we only have about a minute left, and I would like to open up a few minutes for questions. If anybody has any questions, we can start going over those now. Now, a lot of this work you saw was in Death Valley, and this was in San Francisco. This particular shot was in Death Valley on the train key. And if anybody's interested in Death Valley class, go to my website. We're going to be leaving next week. There's something to get involved in. But we can talk about that more later. So questions so far?
It looks like we have one question from John, and this question is, how much storage do the virtual copies use?
Okay, how much
storage
resources or storage? Oh, very good question. Keep in mind that what Lightroom is doing essentially is not duplicating your image. All of your virtual copies exist inside your database. So it's reading from your original images sitting in your folder to create a fake image, which is called a virtual copy. And all of this is basically your metadata, which is text, and a small JPEG file. So it does not take up much memory or room on your hard drive at all. And that's the beauty of Lightroom in general, and that's why Adobe designed it so that it's working off of a central database so that it will save you hard drive space by creating all of your magic on virtual copies. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does.
Okay, great. And then if anyone else has any other questions, we encourage you to type them in right now. Also, Stephen went over Photoshop CS6 today, and I just want to remind everyone that we have a great promotion going on right now on on MacMall's Facebook page, and we will be giving away a free copy of Photoshop CS6. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah, I know. We it's going to be it's a really cool application, but we're giving away a copy. The giveaway ends May 31st, so go over to Facebook and enter to win. And so it looks like we've got a few more questions.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, do you have time for a few more questions? Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Is from Helen, and the question is, On1 Software recently announced that they were distributing perfect layers for free. Would that allow would that allow you to use blending modes without leaving Lightroom?
Okay. I just found out that they were offering perfect layers for free. Understand that Photoshop was designed from the ground up to handle layers in large amounts of file sizes very effectively and very, very quickly. It does allow you to use some layers. It does allow you to use blend modes, but it's very, very slow. Okay, so in other words, Adobe didn't build in layer functionality inherent into Lightroom. You're working in a type of a plugin using On1 Software as a plugin overlay on top of Lightroom. So as a result, it slows things down quite a bit. So I highly recommend that since you have Photoshop, I'm assuming you have Photoshop, if you have Photoshop, use Photoshop in a way that is very, very good at. If you feel, and I think your question also resonates with the tone that, well, why should I use anything else if I have Lightroom and Lightroom's going to do everything I wanted to do? The answer to that feeling is Lightroom does not do everything you want it to do. Lightroom is very good as a database management system, and it allows you raw editing features, and of course, it allows you some real nice organizational functionalities such as your map module and your book module and so forth, or the slideshow module. So use Photoshop for what it's strongest at. Export it into layers, work with it effectively, get all the control you need, the creative control you need, and then come back into Lightroom. And I'm not against using on-one software by any means. It's just that I want to use a software package that's integrated naturally into the program from the ground up so it works fast and efficient. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay, yes. And while you were answering that, we've had quite a few more questions come in. So the next question is from Terry. And do you know if Adobe will provide Lightroom to be used in a multi-user access?
In a multi-user access? Now, I'm assuming meaning several users at one time, or I'm not quite sure.
Yes, that's correct.
That is correct? All right. Keep in mind that Lightroom is designed as a database management. It's run by one database at a time. In other words, it's similar to how you work in Photoshop. Photoshop can only work in one layer at a time. So Lightroom can only work under one database at a time. So can multiple people go in there and play with that database? Yes, you can. But the most efficient way to do is to make copies of your catalog. You can duplicate your catalog the same way you duplicate a file. Copy it, paste it to several different computers or several different locations, and then, of course, each of your users can work off that database, their own database off of the same images that you provided for them. So maybe that's a possible workaround. In terms of everybody going into it at one time to mess around with it, that's not quite possible yet. But I think duplicating the catalog and letting everybody work in their own catalog, which is essentially the same catalog but given to several different people, that will be the most effective way to work.
Okay, and then the follow-up is, will the catalogs be in sync?
Will the catalogs be in sync? No. They won't be in sync. But what you can do is you can export imagery as well as what do you call them, the sidecar files, the XMP files from the images. You can export everything as XMP and import the XMP into Lightroom. So it's not yet designed, as far as I know, to work as a network system where you have one database and a whole bunch of people get to go into that one catalog and do whatever they want to do, because a catalog can only connect to one interface at a time.
Okay. And our next question is, Aperture and Lightroom, are they really comparable specifically for a Mac user?
Well, I recommend, and I have a lot of private clients that are Aperture people originally, and now they're all Lightroom people. And Aperture is a good program, but Adobe has now become the industry standard. From the very beginning, Lightroom was much faster and easier to learn and manipulate than Aperture. So I prefer Lightroom. If you are an Aperture user, I highly recommend that you also purchase a copy of Lightroom. It's so inexpensive. And work that way. All of your labs, your photo labs, or any of the industry working with database management is going to be using Lightroom. So I like to get in sync with the industry so that there's no communication issues.
Okay, great. Our next question, does all the metadata and keywords automatically transfer to the virtual copy?
Yes, absolutely. Anything that you do in Bridge or any program like Aperture or any database program that embeds keywords into your images, all the keywords are recognized naturally by Lightroom and imported in, because your keywords are embedded inside of your digital files, your digital images. So all that will be transferred.
Okay. And have you found Lightroom 4 to be slower than Lightroom 3?
Do I find Lightroom 4 slower than Lightroom 3?
Right.
No. No, I find it faster than Lightroom 3. Understand that as I'm working on my system, I've got a whole bunch of programs open. I have Photoshop open, I've got Photomatix open, and I'm running the WebEx webinar program at the same time. So on your systems, and even on my system, it ran pretty quickly.
Okay, and we're going to take one more question then before we go ahead and wrap up because, you know, we do want to cover a couple more things. So this question is, if you use multiple catalogs, how do you keep track of what is in each catalog? What is the maximum number of pictures you suggest in one catalog without slowing down performance?
Okay, that's completely up to you. I like to split. All my catalogs are the result of each of my external hard drives. For example, if I have a byte hard drive, in fact, I may have 7, say for example, 5 different 2 terabyte individual hard drives that I back up all my photographic imagery to. I will make a catalog per hard drive so that it limits the amount of data that Lightroom has to work with. So, or you can decide to limit your catalog by your client. So maybe ILM is a client, or you know, some other movie studio is a client, and you want to put all this stuff on one hard drive. You just make a catalog just for them. So you can organize your catalogs according to your personal workflow. And I don't recommend making some big giant catalog for every one of your external hard drives on your system. For example, if I have, like I said again, if I have 5 2 terabyte hard drives, I would not make one big catalog for all 5 2 terabyte hard drives. I'll make one catalog for each of the hard drives. And that way it becomes a lot more efficient, faster for Lightroom to deal with, and a lot more organized on your part. All right, so I guess that's the last question.
Yeah, well, that was the last question that we have time for today. There were a couple others, but you know, we'll try to follow up on those after the webinar.
You know what? For anybody has questions, contact me. If you go to my website, let me go to this here. If you go to my website, you see my email, steve@chromeillusion.com. Okay, and you can email me at that address anytime. So let me get rid of this one. I accidentally clicked the program. steve@chromeillusion.com, and you know, come to the website, email me. I'll be happy to answer any questions. In fact, if you email MacMall, they should be able to send you my email address as well. And one last thing before we go, just wanted to talk about quickly, the Death Valley Excursion class starts next week. Definitely check that out. And if you're interested in any of the workshops, I am teaching a Lightroom workshop coming up. It's a Lightroom 4 workshop, and that's coming up on May 17th. All right, so it's going to include the new Lightroom 4. The first data class is how to organize everything, how to organize all of your content where you always know where things are. Then we'll be getting into catalogs, understanding how and why they work, multiple catalogs, and then getting into the magic of the color effects that you can do in Lightroom, how to work between Lightroom and external programs and so forth. And it's a 5-week class. So I'm here in San Diego, so anybody who is near or close to San Diego, so send me an email. Thank you all for being here. Is there anything else?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Just a couple more things. Some people were asking about the Photoshop CS6 giveaway, and that is on the MacMall Facebook page. So it's on the MacMall Facebook page. We're doing a giveaway for a full license copy of the Photoshop CS6 for Mac. It's a $700 value, and that giveaway ends on May 31st. Also, some other people were asking about the introduction to Lightroom webinar. And yes, this was a double feature. Last week, Stephen went over the introduction to Lightroom, introduction to Lightroom, and then today he went over the creative application. And both links will be sent to you, and you can also find them on our website at www.macmall.com. Those should be live next week, and they should be sent to you by email next week as well. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. It was a great presentation. Stephen, thank you so much. There's some really cool things.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This concludes our presentation. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.